indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we go through each day, bring the truth of your word to our minds and help us to apply your wisdom to our decisions. Today, we ask for your guidance to do right by all. For this we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Next, we have proclamations. We have a proclamation from our partners at DHR proclaiming September 23rd as National Leukemia, Lymphoma, and Melanoma Awareness Month.
Great. Commissioner Rivera's going to read it.
Whereas approximately every 3 minutes, one person in the U.S. is diagnosed with leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma. And whereas an estimated combined total of 184,720 people in the United States are expected to be diagnosed with leukemia, lymphoma, or myeloma in 2023. And whereas new cases of leukemia, lymphoma, and myeloma are expected to account for 9.4% of the estimated 1,958,310 new cancer cases that will be diagnosed in the U.S. in 2023. And whereas the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society maintains 3 offices in the state of Texas to support patients with these diseases and their family members. And whereas the Advanced Care Center is similarly committed to the eradication of these diseases and supports the treatment of the citizens that suffer from them. And whereas the Advanced Care Center encourages private efforts to enhance research funding and education programs that addresses these diseases. Now, therefore, I, Ambrosio Hernandez, Ramiro Caballero, in behalf of Ambrosio Hernandez, Mayor of the City of Pharr, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested in me in behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as Leukemia, Lymphoma, and Myeloma Awareness Month.
Thank you.
First of all, Honorable Mayor, City Council, we want to make sure that we want to thank for allowing us to be here today on behalf of DHR Health. My name is Pharr Liscano. I'm your Administrator of Corporate Affairs for DHR Health. I'm joined by our advanced care team and also by a volunteer and also survivor that's with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So I'd like to pass the mic on to Ms. Clara Chapa, who will give us a few words on behalf of the Advanced Care Center. And like always, thank you to the City of Pharr for supporting our efforts as we will go ahead and inform, educate, and make sure that we bring awareness when issues, proclamations, or anything that has to do with the wellness of our community comes abroad, that we're always grateful for your support. With you is Ms. Clara.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to gather here today amongst the City of Pharr Commission and its constituents. And today we gathered here to shed light on these blood cancers that affect the lives of so many. In the fight against these diseases, awareness is key. Statistics show that Hispanics under the age of 20 have the highest rates of incidence. This cancer impacts not only the individuals battling them, but also their families and their loved ones. By designating September as Leukemia and Lymphoma Cancer Awareness Month, DHR Health is showing its commitment to raising awareness about these conditions, supporting those who are affected, and fostering a sense of unity in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want to introduce your 2 guests?
Yes, I want to make sure that we also give her a little bit to say hello and a few words, because she is one of the volunteers that's here with us today.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for all that you're doing for the Leukemia and Lymphoma community. My name is Molly Hinojosa, and I am a 24-year survivor. I had 3 days to live back in 1999, but with the help of the doctors, of God, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I am here today, and I make myself available as well to help the patients that are coming in and help them with their cancer journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us here. My name is Ruby Tanguma. I'm one of the patient navigators at Oncology Institute, and I'm also glad to be part of this awareness month. So we all can just have us in mind, for our patients that suffer through all these diagnoses of cancer.
Great.
Thank you.
Can you expand for the public What is a patient navigator?
So a patient navigator actually helps the patients out with any type of cancer to help them out with resources, find anything that will be able to, get them and guide them through their process, through their journey, so that way they won't be, having that load on their back to, so we're basically part of them as they go through that journey.
Great. Well, soon you're gonna have a partner at City of Pharr when it comes to patient navigation. Dr. Cabello, one of our commissioners, as you know, he's a neonatologist. And he works at UHS, Atlanta Medical Center, and Rio Grande Regional as well. So we see patients from all over. They come back home to City of Pharr. And your partner is gonna be our health department. We're launching a health department for that reason. A lot of our clients, right, in healthcare are residents of Pharr, and that's our priority. They come home and sometimes they're lacking resources or lacking education,
Yeah.
even from a preventive standpoint, right? And especially after treatment, and they need to be able to understand what they're at risk at, right?
That's
And
correct.
also when with a Zika virus or COVID or something else coming out, how it affects them, and also the most vulnerable population. So you're going to find that the City of Pharr will be launching a health department. We'll be reaching out to all the organizations to be sure that when our patients, which is our population of Pharr, utilizes the health system, it still continues within our health department to be sure that they're taken care of. So just so you
Awesome.
know.
Good to hear.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
I just want to take a minute
yes.
to give a recognition to our patient navigators because they are a huge asset to the Oncology Institute. They serve as a liaison between the patients and the doctors. When people get this diagnosis, they have so many questions, they're overwhelmed, they don't really know what to begin asking. So the navigators serve as their point of contact for financial resources, questions about medication, just helping them follow up with them after their appointments, after their treatments. So they do a tremendous job for us. Thank you.
Congratulations. Good. Yes, we'll take a photo with you.
I forgot mine in the.
Second proclamation, correct?
Yes, correct. So next we have a proclamation proclaiming September 11, 2023 as remembering and honoring the 22nd anniversary of September 11 at Vanguard Academy. So we have
Great.
some-
Do we have somebody from Vanguard Academy? We have somebody to accept this?
Yes. You want to come over here?
Yeah, in the center. Yes.
I remember, ¿cómo se llama aquel? Montes? Oh, Vanguard. They're right here.
Thank you. On behalf of Vanguard Academy, we'd like to thank you for everything that you do for us, that amazing partnership and collaboration. When it comes to our kids, Pharr is the best. Champions of education. We value education. partnership, collaboration effort that we all have to make our kids the best. So we remember 9/11, 22 years ago, right? A lot of people have forgotten, but we have not forgotten. We remember it. Not only is it Patriot Day, but it's also what we would consider National Day of Service. So for law enforcement, all the people that are first responders always are on call to serve. We thank them. And also to volunteer. We want to teach our kids the importance of volunteering. So here with me are some of the amazing principals that we have at Vanguard Academy. I'm Ray Perez. I teach history for Vanguard, history professor, and this is Miss.
Good afternoon, Angelica Martinez, Principal, Vanguard Mozart
Welcome.
Secondary in Alamo. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you.
Jose Gonzalez, I'm the principal at Beethoven Secondary in Edinburgh.
Good afternoon, Dina Cano, Principal at Vanguard Rembrandt Secondary here in Pharr. And like Mr. Bettis said, we do appreciate all your efforts as a city. Our kiddos go to you all for summer internships. They get firsthand work. And so now just granting them this opportunity with a proclamation will really bring it to life. Some of us were witnesses, or all of us were witnesses to what happened that devastating day. And so we want to make sure that they know that turning point for our country and to ensure to be why law enforcement is so important, why firefighters are so important, EMTs, just everybody that's in the line of service, just because of that devastating day. And so we want to make sure that we keep it alive for them, and what better them serving those that serve them.
Well said. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Whereas the city of Pharr and all its residents desire to express their sorrow for the 22,983 people who died in Manhattan, at the Pentagon, and in Pennsylvania Field on September 11, 2001, in what remains the deadliest act of terrorism in U.S. history. And whereas the land of the free, while grief-stricken, became one nation, united, resolved, and determined. And whereas the terrorists not only attacked American institutions and cultural history, they also attacked Americans' principles and we the people. And whereas the city of Pharr and Vanguard Academy honor individuals and families who were directly affected by the September 11, 2001 tragedy. And whereas we, the American people, will keep the flame of freedom lit for those Americans that died in this tragedy. And whereas in the city of Pharr, its neighboring cities, and Vanguard Academy also honor and recognize local heroes who contributed to improving the quality of life for everyone here at home. Now, therefore, I, Ambrosio Hernandez, Mayor of the City of Pharr, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested in me and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim September 11, 2023 as remembering and honoring the 22nd anniversary of September 11th at Vanguard Academy. In witness here, whereunto I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Pharr to be affixed on this 5th day of September 2023. There you go, boss. Okay. So where are we going? Where? We're going to go through the whole thing?
Yeah, we're gonna go, I'll get this.
Okay.
Next, we have public testimony. Is there anybody?
No, sir, no one signed up.
What about public hearings?
None.
Okay, under city manager's report, mayor and commission, in your packet, you'll have the city engineer's report. If you all have any questions, Mr. Alfaro is here to answer them.
Okay.
All right, next we'll have Yudi come up for the city events of interest.
Thank you, Hilda. Good afternoon, Commission, Mayor Yuri Gonzalez, Office of City Communications Director. For the record, this is just a time to remind our community about upcoming events. We have a special event approaching this Friday, and it's called the Stick By Me. This event is spearheaded by the Pharr Police Department under the health unit, mental health unit. And this is a time where we're inviting our entire community to come out and bring awareness to those that have committed suicide. Yes, it's a very sensitive subject, but it is a reality. We actually have Chief Gonzalez here if he wants to elaborate on this, but this is the third year that this event is happening. This will be taking place, as you see on the screen, at the Pharr Vanguard Academy and Birding Nature Center. Yes. So what we do is the community comes together, we'll have special guests, we'll have information, but everybody gets a glow stick. This glow stick is meant to represent the life of that person that is no longer with us. So at the end, they break that glow stick, but that's a symbol that that person is still glowing in our hearts. So it's a beautiful event. It's happening for the third year. We just want to invite everybody to come out, and it's really nice. I was there last year. This happens at night, and it's just a reminder that we have the resources, we have the team, and we have a great police department that can help our community when it comes to suicide and people in crisis.
Wonderful.
Okay, and we also have a quick recap, and this is an event that took place a week and a half ago. This was spearheaded through Luis with the Pharr International Bridge, and this is a Industrial Warehouse Summit recap.
It's a great time to invest in the city of Pharr. The industrial landscape in Pharr is seeing major growth, and at the forefront is Luis Bazan, director of the Pharr International Bridge, along an entire team of innovative leaders, city commissioners, and Mayor Dr. Ambrosio Hernandez. The surge of commercial crossings at our bridge is what led Bazan to create the Industrial Warehouse Summit.
We launched the series back in April to raving reviews and a lot of commitment from a lot of the major players that are here today.
The series gained major traction, leading Bazan and his team to host the second part, the IWS2. Topics ranged from trade development, construction opportunities, incentive programs, the bridge expansion, and the need for crucial warehouse space used for storage and distribution.
Right now, warehouse space is very limited. I believe there's about 97 or 98 capacity right now. So there's only about 2 or 3% left.
Bazan says supply chain issues is one of the reasons for the low warehouse space.
So what's happening? A lot of suppliers are keeping inventory, larger amounts of inventory in warehousing space in order to be ready with that supplies, with those materials in case it is needed, instead of waiting around months, maybe years, for those supplies to finally get there.
As storage space drops, so does the opportunity to distribute. The Industrial Warehouse Summit looks to combat that issue by highlighting the city of Pharr and the great opportunities for investors. A major selling point is the bridge expansion, one that is already in the works.
It's gonna promote businesses to not spend a lot of time in their crossing. So we're gonna cut their crossing time. That means less time for the drivers on their trucks, less diesel on their trucks.
Un evento muy importante para nosotros, la parte mexicana, porque vemos que están exponenciando mucho la Info y Expo. Entonces, el crecimiento que ha tenido Pharr con el nuevo proyecto del puente es muy atractivo para la parte mexicana, para poder competir con otras fronteras como Laredo o otros lugares.
Part 3 of the series is set to take place in November 2023.
At the end of the day, that'll help the state, that'll help the nation, and it'll help us internationally as well.
The Pharr International Bridge continues to be the leading port of entry in the nation when it comes to commercial crossings. Stay tuned as the city of Pharr gets ready to host multiple events this fall under the Pharr International Bridge umbrella.
Great job. All right, next we have item 6, our consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the governing body and will be enacted by one motion.
Okay, need a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
All right, next we're going to skip over to item 9A. I'm going to ask Melanie to come up.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. For the record, Melanie Cano. I am the Office of Organization and Strategic Excellence Director. I am with you today to go over the Budget Priority Citizen Survey for 23-24. As you recall, we've been doing this this is our third year now, and it's a great way for us to gauge citizen input and provides valuable data that helps us determine the proposed budget year. So we'll go ahead and get started. For the methodology, respondents were asked to identify a top priority area from the following strategic priorities. Now, these look very familiar because they're aligned directly with our strategic plan, okay? And they include service excellence, city infrastructure, quality of life, economic development, and safe and secure community. So once they select a priority area, they then select a focus area that's directly from that priority area, the main strategic objective.
Okay.
And please stop me if you have any questions because I tend to go fast.
Do they get to respond, I mean, ad lib, they can write things down, or they,
At the end, there is an additional feedback, and they do provide information should they choose.
okay.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
When they do it, do they number them, like this is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 5, 4, 3, or whatever?
No, they
To
select.
rank what they're thinking. Because if you just put 1, then we're just gonna know what.
The way we structured the survey, and the first year we did do that. But there were so many options that we didn't get a good response. We didn't get that many surveys because it's just a lengthy survey. So what we ended up doing here, we condensed it so that way it can align with our strategic plan, and they choose one specific priority area.
Okay.
But if that's something that the commission wishes to do for the next following years, I mean, we're all about a culture of continuous improvement, so we can definitely do that. So we'll go ahead and jump right into our demographics. This right here is the respondents. 40.1% of the respondents are from the north side. That translates to 594, and then central 518, and south 370.
What's considered north?
North side is considered from Owasso all the way up to frontage.
For frontage?
Yes.
Got it.
And then from frontage to Javelina is central, and then Javelina to military is south.
Is south, okay.
So 47.4% in terms of the age groups are ages 25 to 44. That's what we had the most respondents. And I'm sorry, I might have jumped ahead.
Did you do it by gender as well?
No.
Okay.
I skipped this slide, I'm sorry. So we ended up with a total of 1,408 responses. And that was an increase from last year, an increase of 10%. So in terms of our top priority for citywide, 31.3% chose public safety, and that includes all of our public safety departments: police, fire, EMS, emergency management, 911. And then we have quality of life, that came in at 26.6%, city infrastructure at 16.9%, and then we have service excellence and economic development both at 12.6%. Now, in this case, in terms of the comparison from last year to this year, nothing really changed other than the top two, which was the public safety and quality of life. Last year, we had quality of life at number 1 and public safety at number 2. So, and the rest was pretty much very similar. So this is where they choose a focus area for those priorities. So for service excellence, 60.2% chose city operations and services. And then we move on to infrastructure, stormwater and drainage, 32.4% chose that as their focus. For quality of life, 35.5% chose parks and rec, and that includes our athletic and recreational programs. For economic development, 27.1% chose downtown area development, and 44.8% chose police services as their focus area for public safety.
That's in line with our investments that we've been doing for the last 8 years.
That's correct.
That's good.
Yes. So now in terms of segmenting, these are the demographics for North Pharr. 26.3% is between 35 to 44. The top 2 age groups came out at 51.1%, and that is from age groups 25 to 44. And then in terms of the top priority relating specifically to North Pharr, again, 32.5 public safety, followed by 22.4, service excellence at 17.2, city infrastructure at 15.5, and economic development at 12.5. As you can see, nothing really changed other than the bottom three.
Okay.
And then in terms of the focus area, again, city operations and services at 70.3. For the north side, they selected city roadways as the focus area at 31.6%. And then 34.6% for parks and recreation, quality of life, 26.3 for business retention and attraction, and then for public safety, police services again at 44%. So now we move on to Central Pharr. In Central Pharr, 23.6 were between the ages of 25 to 34. 46.3% were between the age groups of 25 to 44. So those are the two top age groups. And then for top priority for Central Pharr, again, we have public safety at 30.1%. Then we have 29.9 quality of life, city infrastructure 18.3, economic development at 12.4, and service excellence at 9.3. So in terms of the focus area for Central Pharr, 50% chose city operations and services, 33% chose stormwater drainage, 33.3 parks and rec, 37.3 downtown area development, 48.4% for public safety chose police services. Now for South Pharr, 22.5% of the respondents were between the ages of 35 to 44. 43.9%, this one shifted a little for the age group of 35 to 54. So those were the two top age groups. Now in terms of the top priority, public safety again came top at 30.8, followed by quality of life at 28.7, city infrastructure at 17%, and then we have economic development at 13.2 and service excellence at 10.3. The focus areas, 46.2 city operations and services, 34.9% stormwater and drainage, 40.6% again parks and rec, and then we have 34.7 for new retail and entertainment options, and then 40.9% for police services again in public safety. So the last question of the survey asked for the top priority, would you support paying more taxes or fees to improve the quality of these focus areas and priority areas? As you can see, it's pretty much 50 and 49.6, so 50-50. 744 respondents chose yes, 731 would not support tax increase.
We have that divided into north-south.
We have that information. I can provide that. I have it. Yeah. And just a reminder, I know that last year one of the issues that came up was the tax increase. The question was not specific last year. That's the one that had the most significant change, because last year the wording of the tax question, it was more of, do you support additional funding? And as you may recall, the topic of discussion that time was we needed to be more direct and ask, would you or would you not support taxes? But other than that, I mean, the changes were really, like I mentioned, the quality of life and safe and secure community. Any questions?
Did you have any in your demographics below 25 or above 55?
We did have a few. As you can see, for instance, in South Pharr, under 18, 30, and then we have 18 to 24 age group, 40 respondents. So we did have a few surveys come out in that age group.
Next year, can you specifically target the outlier sites, like the younger and the older?
Yeah.
Because I would think they would think differently,
They did.
and that would give you a better picture of everybody in Pharr.
Yes,
Not that-
and I have that information too. I just wanted to show an overview of the segmentation, the demographics, but we can definitely provide that information. Any other questions?
That's good.
Okay.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Carla, who will present the budget.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the City of Pharr Budget Workshop for fiscal year 2023-2024. I promise I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. I'm going to try to make this presentation a little bit basic 101 since we have a new commissioner, and for the public out there. So a lot of the terminology that I'm going to use, I'm going to try to make it more relatable to the public and to you as well. So the things that we're going to go over today, the items to be discussed, we're going to talk about general fund, the utility fund, our EMS, our Team Pharr.net, our Pharr International Bridge, which is my favorite, and of course, and I'm going to give a little bit brief summary of our citywide debt towards the very end. Now, again, to remind the public, the general fund. The general fund, what that is, I guess you keep holding maybe, general fund, general fund. So what is it? The general fund is the main operating fund that any city or school district has that accounts for the core functions. So in the city's case, this is your public safety, your culture and recreation, your streets, and your health. And of course, you know, overall the general administration. But when you talk about general fund, think about police department, fire department, public works, parks and recreations, municipal court, etc. Now, like any fund, any city, we all have sources of revenue, right? So I'm going to talk about the major sources of revenue that the city's general fund has. I'm going to concentrate in the top three. As in any other city or school district, the top number one source of revenue is, of course, property taxes. The number two is sales taxes. And the number three is what we call transfers in. What transfers in is or means, it's their contributions from other funds that the city has. So those three make up for the major sources of revenue for the city. Now, let's jump into the property taxes. The property taxes are determined by the net taxable value certified by the Hidalgo County Appraisal District. So I usually present this slide so that you can see the net taxable value, which means the value, the market value of all the properties for the city of Pharr, all your houses or your buildings, everything. So this year, the values, what the city of Pharr properties are worth is $4.77 billion compared to 4.16 from last year. I usually do this pie chart so that you can see what the 4.77 billion is spread out, right? So 56.6% is residential, it's houses, 32.6 is commercial, and the rest is divided among vacant lots and inventory, etc. I would like to point out that the 56.6% that you see, 3 years ago, was around in the 40%. So that tells us that in the last 2 years, there has been, you know, more residential, more subdivisions, more apartment complexes coming into the city of Pharr. Now, the 4.77 billion compared to the 4.16 of last year equals a 14.47% increase. Out of that 14.47%, 2.61% of the growth is actual new property. That translates to an approximately $125 million in new property just this year. Now, I would like for you to see the trend of the growth in taxable value for the last 6 years. I'm starting with 18-19 all the way to, of course, our next budget year, 23-24. If you notice, I guess what I would like to show, what I'm trying to communicate to you is that if you notice the growth, it's relatively steady, you know, +3, -3%. Once we hit from 2021-22 to 22-23, we see a kind of jump into the double digits. Once you hit anything above 10%, pretty much increase, like pretty much says inflation, right? So as everybody knows, after the pandemic, the construction market skyrocketed. So obviously that means that everybody's house values went up. And I don't think any of you can say the opposite. When you saw the tax bill, pretty much your home value went up. So just for you to, just to understand that sometimes the value they increase, we have no control. The city of Pharr has no control of that. A lot of that means it's because of the market and the economy out there. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question. Well, but as we grow and we're getting ready to do our second expansion on the bridge, we have many companies coming to invest into our ETJ. Is there any way we can track that? How much tax are we gaining for warehouses or any development happening in our ETJ?
Most definitely, yes. I can start requesting that detailed information. It can be obtained from the Hidalgo County Appraisal District. So it is something that we can track.
Especially those that, I know we have a line item here, that we are annexing certain properties and how that helps the city of Pharr, tax-wise.
Yes, yes, sir. So again, property taxes, it's determined by the net taxable value, and obviously that is not the only factor. The other factor is the property tax rate. So now let's take a look at the city of Pharr tax rate. I also want to show you history, and I'm going back all the way to 2014. Now, even 10 years before 2014, all the way to 2015, the tax rate had been 0.68 cents. As you notice, in 2016, you all adopted to lower the tax rate. We were able to maintain it all the way, low, all the way to fiscal year 2019. And because the city started implemented its capital improvement project plan aggressively, everything has a cost. So in the year 2020, we were in the need to raise the property tax to 0.7176 cents. Now, moving forward 4 years, now for fiscal year 2023-2024, we're proposing to increase an additional 5 cents to the current tax rate. Now, those 5 cents, I want to point out that it's going to be increased in the interest and sinking portion of the tax rate, or what we call INS. Now, what does that mean? What does INS mean? I'm going to give a 101 on how tax rate works. This applies to, again, all local governmental entities. All the tax rates get split into two parts. One is to fund the maintenance and operations, and the other part is to fund the interest and sinking, which is the portion that pays for the debt. So in this case, I guess the city of Pharr tax rate proposing a 0.7676 cents, 0.5615, it's gonna go to the maintenance and operations, which is gonna be used to pay for all the, again, operations. And 0.2061, it's gonna go to generate revenue to pay for the city's debt and to issue additional debt. Now, based on the appraised value that we have and with this tax rate, what does that mean in numbers? So the revenue expected to be generated from property taxes for next fiscal year, it's a total of $34.77 million. Based on the split that the city tax rate has, 25.44 is gonna go for maintenance and operations, and 9.33 is gonna go for the interest and sinking, which is to pay for the debt. That equals 2.76 more than this fiscal year 22-23 for the general fund or for the maintenance and operations. And for the debt service, it's going to be 3.32 more than last year. That $3.32 million, it's what's going to help us issue an additional $50 million to cover for existing and new projects coming to the city of Pharr. Now, what does this mean for the Pharr resident? I'm a Pharr resident myself, but I'm the finance director, right? So I understand clearly how this change works. But for anybody out there, for the tax resident, I just want to highlight and make sure that you all understand that when you receive your tax bill, it's not the city of Pharr just taxing you. You're paying the school district, you're paying the county, you're paying the irrigation district. Obviously, we are there also. But the city of Pharr can only control our tax rate. We cannot control anybody else's entity's tax rate, and we definitely cannot control the appraised value of your house. The only thing that we can control is the tax rate that we're proposing. So in this table, I just want to show you, give you an example, and the Pharr resident to see, depending on your home value, how much difference of how much of an increase means those 5 cents. So for example, if your house is valued at $125,000, according to the appraisal district, you will be paying an additional $62.50 a year. Again, this is only the Pharr portion only, which is the one thing that we can control. Now, if you divide the $62.50, that equals to $5.21 a month. So, just to put it in perspective so that the Pharr resident understand, the monetary difference that it means, that tax rate increase. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, where's this money going? The $50 million that we're proposing with a tax rate increase. We're not increasing it just because, right? There's a reason where the money is going. So I'm showing here 2 tables so that you can see the projects that are currently in place. And again, inflation has hit us really, really hard and outrageously in the construction mainly, like the market. Prices for labor, for wood, for paint, for everything, again, high skyrocket. And overall, the cost of, construction itself. We have, where's Ruben? Ruben, our city engineer, can attest to that. We have sat together and gone over those projects. And if you notice, for those 3 projects, hello? Can you hear me? Can it be heard okay, I'm just gonna continue. But I just wanna make sure that the public hears though.
Here, take one of those.
I don't know what probably the battery. Thank you. So again, for those 3 existing projects, you can see that it adds up. $20 million alone, it's due to updated costs. And it might sound crazy, but it is. Now, the other table, I'm showing the projects that are about to start, that it's, again, for the better quality of the citizens of Pharr. And that's another $30 million, just to remind everybody, the public out there, that everything has a cost, everything costs money, and we kind of tend to forget about that, but roads, labor, everything has a cost. Now, that's all I have for property taxes. Are there any specific questions before I move on? If not, I'm going to jump into the second major source of revenue for the city of Pharr, which is sales taxes. Again, damn inflation, right? Obviously, sales taxes, it's the one source of revenue that it gets, obviously, we are directly affected by the economy out there. So prices are up, everything goes up, and people, of course, buy less. So in this table, what I want to show you is the number that the city projected for this fiscal year based on previous trends. Even though after the pandemic and everything, the sales taxes were actually, doing good. This year is when we felt a little bit more of a hit. So we're about to finish the year. We have just 1 month away. So we're expected to be at 21.68 collection in sales taxes compared to 22.56 that we originally budgeted. So that's almost $900,000 less, which for the city general's fund, it is a material amount. Now, again, this is just to show you the trend. The 22-23, like I mentioned, we're going to be at 21.68 million. So we're trying to be conservative because even though we didn't meet budget, we are collecting more than the previous year. We're still collecting more. So obviously, we still expect a little bit of growth, but we're being conservative and we're proposing only a 2% increase or $22.11 million for next fiscal year. Now, the third major source of revenue, which is our contributions from other funds. Not much to say here, just to remind you, are the other funds that contribute to the general fund, as always, our golden child, the Pharr International Bridge, which thank you, Luis, for doing such a great job. And if you can see, $9.6 million, it's transferred from the bridge into our general fund as a major source of revenue. And just to remind the public out there also that the bridge actually, because of these transfers and because the commission chooses to transfer that money into the city's general fund, is that the tax rate can also be maintained at a certain level. Because if it wasn't for these contributions, the city tax rate could actually be higher. So we have our Pharr International Bridge contributing, our partner, the Pharr Economic Development Corporation, the Paving and Drainage Fund, and the Hotel and Motel Fund, which generates hotel taxes. So all of these funds contribute a total of $11.6 million compared to 12.1 from last year. It's a little bit of a decrease of $485,200, but obviously it's still material, and that makes up for the contributions from other funds to the general fund. Now, overall, I'm not going to go into detail into every single source of revenue because, like I said at the beginning, there's 3 main ones that are worth talking about. So putting everything together, this is how our proposed budget revenues are going to look like. $76.56 million compared to $69.73, which is an increase of 9.81%. Just to make a clarification, those $66.56 million includes debt proceeds. Those debt proceeds are used for one-time purchases only. And this is something that we have every year, but it's not operational revenue. Any questions on the revenues before I move on to the fund part of the budget, which are the expenditures. So this is the money coming in, but I wish we can keep it. We can't. All the money coming in goes out. So, no questions? Okay. Let's move on to the expenditures. Just to remind everybody, again, like any other company, personnel, it's the major source of expenditure where the money goes, right? So for the City of Pharr General Fund, 61% of our expenditures is for our personnel. That includes, of course, benefits. So with that being said, since it's the material what makes up for most of the expenditures, I would like to point out that for this coming fiscal year, there's only restructuring of personnel. There are no additional positions being proposed, only restructuring and reallocating within.
Carla,
Yes.
The personnel, that includes our EMS, all our police, fire. Is that included in personnel?
This right here includes only the general fund, but it applies also to everybody.
The employees. When you
Yes.
say personnel, you mean?
Oh, yes, everybody, the city.
Public
So,
work, but it means every department.
yes,
especially-
every department, 60% of every department accounts for personnel benefits. Yes. So now this is what our proposed expenditures are going to look like. If you notice, the major one, which is at the top, is the personnel services, $45.57 million. And as I mentioned, since there's only restructuring of personnel, you only see a 1.8% difference, which is pretty much nothing. Now, the rest of the line items, I'm circling in red the ones that had a little bit of a higher variance or impact. If you can see, I have circled operating supplies, which is an increase of 16.51%. I have fleet replacement and vehicle maintenance. Those three line items are the ones that show, I guess, a material and significant increase compared to last year. Now, why? In the other operating supplies, for example, we're proposing a one-time purchase of radios for our fire department. And of course, Chief Pilar can elaborate a little bit of that, but what's more to say, right? Fire officials need a way to communicate. The radios, of course, is the #1 tool to communicate. Now, we're also proposing to purchase technology equipment, which I would like to remind that that's something that sometimes we take for granted. Technology has a cost, and obviously we're living a smart city and smart world, so we have to invest in our technology too. Now, the other line item that I mentioned that I circled in red was fleet replacement. This increase is due to two things. Number one, we're in the second year of a citywide vehicle replacement. If you recall, 2 years ago, the city entered into an agreement to replace all city vehicles. Now we're in the second year. Of course, those vehicles include police units. Now, the other thing is that not only we're replacing those units, we're also seeing that the cost is a little bit higher. Well, not just a little bit. It's, I'm giving an example here of what we used to pay on average for a police truck compared to what we pay right now. So from $1,500, we're jumping into $2,100. Now, keep in mind, this cost may seem super high, but this specific example is for a police unit, so you gotta remember that it includes all the equipment inside the vehicle. You're talking about your laptops, your radios, your GPS, everything. And I mean, again, as a Pharr resident, I would definitely, wouldn't want if I have to call the police to show up, in a 20-year-old vehicle with no equipment.
I have a question.
Yes.
But when we were paying $1,500 a month, we're paying for a police unit, right?
Correct.
Now we're paying $600 more. So all the equipment, everything on that truck costs $7,200, 7,200 more per unit per year?
Yes. But that's, again, that's going back to the overall increase in prices.
No, I understand that. That's freaking almost, what, about a 40% increase?
Yes.
But that's inflation.
Those numbers,
Yes.
that just seems very, very outlandish. I mean, I can understand a 20% increase on equipment and materials and all that kind of stuff, but 40%, what are we putting into these units?
No, with the.
And I know it's not the police, it's fire, and it's probably every, you know.
It's, it's the emergency lighting, everything across the spectrum. It all raised with inflation, right? All the prices went up. And then also what you're seeing with these fleet vehicles is if the police chief comes today and says, you know what, we need 10 units, it can take over a year to get those units. And so there's just this huge
No, I understand
issue.
that. I'm just saying because of the price.
No, absolutely.
increase. I mean, if we need the trucks, we need the trucks. Obviously, we gotta provide the safety and security, but my deal is just the $7,200 more. And I know this is just police cars. These are, like I said, fire trucks, it's all.
Yeah.
Do we need to have them?
Yes, that's, you see, that's remember what you started off with. Our major, culprit that's hurting all budgets throughout the United States is inflation. Nothing special, difference being bought for the fire, which is important, the police department, nothing unique there's nothing special about it. It's the same equipment. It's just more expensive.
Yeah, no,
And
I
so,
understand
and
that.
that's what we're running into
I
as a
know
problem.
it's unique. I don't even know this is on. I don't think you need it. My voice is real loud. You
Yeah.
can probably capture it. I just don't see that 40, what is it, like 40% increase?
Yeah.
Basically? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm dumb. I don't know numbers very well or anything, but just a quick review of it, it just seems a little high to me. Like I say, 20%, I can understand. A 20% increase on the equipment and stuff like that. Maybe we need to, I don't know, look at it a little closer. Go out there a little bit more to see what else is out
Yeah.
there.
Well, I think
I'm
you
not,
guys,
I know we can afford it, we can do all this, but the numbers just seemed,
but it's
and
actually,
like I say, I'm not picking a police department.
no, I know.
So, I mean,
Co-
and I
com-
understand it's equipment as far as public utilities, parks and rec, I understand that. They all need radios. We
Yeah.
all need all this communication. We need the little flashing lights, even like the guy who picks up the dogs, our animal control. I get that. I understand it. It's just something that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
It looks kind of high.
Yeah. Mike, Commissioner. Yes, sir. What was the interest rate for a mortgage 2 years ago versus now?
50% more.
That's right. Right now, you can get a house at 5, 6 and a quarter. But people are currently, right? I mean, 8.
8%.
We're at 8 already,
Yeah.
right? So, and we used to be at 2, 3. So it costs a lot of money and nothing to do with management of our city, our departments. There's nothing to do with you guys. It's, we see it when we go pump gas or I go buy milk or eggs, whatever it is. It's just the cost of doing business. And it's unfortunate that everybody's facing this, but it is due to inflation. And so I just want to make sure people understand that there's nothing unique about what our department heads are asking for. It's the same exact truck, same exact tire, same exact radio, everything the same. They just cost more, 30, 40%. And, I wish it would not be that way, Commissioner.
Well, no, definitely. I understand also. I mean, but I'm just saying in 1 year is a difference.
I know.
I mean, I can understand if it was 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Expanded to 3 or 4 years. It just seems a little high.
Yeah.
And I'm not, like I say, I'm not being a PD. I know it's
Sure.
every unit throughout the city. A fire truck. I understand fire truck, shit. What does the truck cost now compared to, sorry.
I'm going to go into that actually in the next slide.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure people understand that we have the most responsible people when it comes to utilizing the funds that they have. and what's really hurting all budgets across, including school districts and any of the government agencies, even the private sector. I mean, we see it. Everything is from manpower shortage to our supply chain.
No, I see it. I
And
mean,
so-
just go to HEB and we know the difference of.
Yes, sir.
You go buy 5 things and it's $100.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it. It just seemed a little bit.
It is high, it's 30-40%, but
Yeah.
at the same time, if you remember the survey, their priorities are public safety. So we can't, none of us is proposing, we're not gonna go cheap on it, we're gonna buy what needs to be bought to protect our city from a public safety standpoint. But it is unfortunate it's costing that much, and they're trying the best they can to not only get grants as
No, and
well.
I know why we did it. I mean, we cut back obviously because when we start leasing some of the vehicles,
Yeah.
and it came back to where we were saving some money.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I would just try to look at the trend. I know it went up, but you know, people at home are gonna see that number, they're gonna be like, wow, really? I mean, I can buy 3 cars for that amount. And that's what the people at home mentality is gonna be.
Not today.
So if we don't explain it to them.
Yes,
we
I
gotta get
understand
the
that part.
message across to them. It's
And-
kind of what we're trying to get, what I'm trying to get at.
Yes. No.
I have employees that still have an iPhone 7 from the company phone, and I do also have in one of the branches that I got a supervisor, they try to upgrade all the software, new drives, and more RAM and stuff. But it was not his money, so it's easy for him to just ask and pick and choose whatever he feels is best. And sometimes I feel that, I'm not saying it's happening, I'm just saying that I do see this, and I have friends in other cities as well, and I ask if they have the same expenditures as we do. And sometimes I feel that, sometimes the directors or whoever's in charge of asking or requesting stuff may feel if it's, would they do those expenditures if it would be their business, it would be their money? And sometimes there's items that we can buy that can last 5 years, but we know in the last 5 years they come up to the commission, say this item will be good for 5 years, and then we see that in 2 years we're buying a new one. Because some vendor or they went somewhere says that this is the best out there, and we ended up always buying and always trying to be on top of everything. I'm pretty sure, and I know that there's some cities out there that don't have all their police trucks with everything that we have. You know, some of these trucks have, I don't know, I think 100 lights. And I'm pretty sure that each light, I put lights in one of my trucks and it cost me like $500. And that's just like 3 lights. Imagine some of these police, they have like a Christmas tree. And it's fine, right? Probably there's somewhere out there that says that the minimum lights in a police truck should have, 60. I don't know, I'm not into that, I'm not into that, and I can easily oversee, approving items like that because I'm not aware of any of them. I'm just saying to those people out there that are making purchases and requesting items, for them to think about it, if this was your money, if this was your company, will you do it? It's a lot easier for my employees to request an iPhone 14 Pro Max, but they don't need it, and I'm not gonna buy it. But it's sometimes within our city that not everyone is overseeing everything. Sometimes people may request an upgrade on a software that may cost taxpayers $1 million. Do we need it? No. Your Windows 10 still works. Why do we need to go out and get the latest Windows? I'm just saying the same thing happened with the cars. There's a tire that runs 60 miles instead of 50 flat, and we're gonna go and spend $12 more on a tire just because it runs 10 miles more flat. I'm just saying we just need to be in mind that this is not the business. This is taxpayers' money, and we need to be sure that what we're buying is just what we need. Not because I want to have the latest laptop on my police truck or any other vehicle. That's just my 2 cents on it, because it's different when you're running your own business. And it's a lot easier when you're using other people's money to buy what you want and need.
I completely agree with you, Commissioner. And Mr. Flores, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah,
Give a
Commissioner,
comment?
so definitely hear your concerns and hear what you're saying, and I can assure you that every director meeting, we talk about being good stewards of the finances and making good, responsible decisions. And I think, especially when it comes to this, to reiterate what the mayor was talking about, is we're buying the exact same thing. It just, it's the inflation cost. And I understand your concerns and what you're talking about in other cities and how they operate, but we have a standard of excellence that was put forth here. And we're doing things that are in line with our strategic plan and everything that you heard Melanie talk about. And so again, I can tell you that looking at it from a new, fresh perspective coming in, I can assure you that the department heads are doing their due diligence and making sure that we are being good stewards of the city's taxpayers' dollars and that we are putting forth a good quality product for our community in everything that we do in every department. And we got really good department heads here that work hard every day for the community of Pharr, that are cognizant of that and that want to do the best that they can to put forth a good product. And the silent majority of the community that I receive calls from every day to talk about how good the department heads are doing and their interactions and our high quality customer service and all those things, we have to be mindful. And as a city manager, my goal is to give the departments the tools that they need to succeed. And sometimes that does come with the cost. But again, is it frivolous? No, it's not. It's being done so that we can provide the standard of excellence that the city of Pharr has been accustomed to here lately. So, thank you.
And one last comment, and I think everybody, thank you everybody for your commentary. But those that don't know, if you haven't had the special privilege of interacting with Carla, quiero que sepa que es más codo que no te imaginas. And so she serves the city well. She's very, very good with the money. And I know you ask 1,000 questions. You and I get into arguments all the time because you're absolutely wanting to control the cost and make sure we have the best deals. So if there's any doubts in any people's mind, please go see Carla and talk to her about any one project, and you'll be delighted to see how she's an extremely good steward of the city of our taxpayer money.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Flores. I guess this third slide, which it's also kind of like goes along the lines.
It answers a lot of questions.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
So overall inflation and repair costs. Now specialized equipment needed for all fire trucks. Now Chief Pilar helped me gather these facts. He did his research based on trends and based on what the fire department has actually paid in the last 3 years. And these are the facts. Labor rates have increased an average of 65%. Auto parts have increased an average of 50%. And the specialized, in this case, is for the fire department, right? Fire apparatus equipment have increased 200%. Of course, this is for public safety. We need to fix a fire truck.
Correct.
I have a question so you're going to budget for next year based on all these values.
Correct.
It's kind of interesting because for your following year, I mean, you're always going to be looking at these, really, it's not the actual cost of the labor, it's just inflated cost of the labor.
Correct.
It's going to go back, hopefully, some point. I would imagine, who knows, but I mean, it's just kind of, to me, it's kind of, people have to understand that what we're paying right now is not really, it's out of our control, because all these things are based on other factors, what somebody decides to charge you versus somebody else did a year ago or 2 years ago. And then we're limited to who we can use to do these specialized work, correct? So really, it's kind of out of the chief's hands, the fire department or EMS. It's just what the reality we're dealt this year. But that's not to say it's going to be the same next year or the following year, because you can't be going up 200%, 200%, 200%.
Right.
If I stabilize, yeah.
We're in the mercy of the market and the economy, pretty much. So right now we're going through an inflation. We're hoping that the economy, levels up in the next couple of years, and obviously we will adjust. But yes, that's kind of like the message that I want to put out there. a lot of these things are out of our control. Any more questions about that?
Have people buy more mangueras so they can turn off their own fire. Just
What,
go ahead.
what was that?
Nothing, go ahead.
Go ahead and repeat. Okay. So now again, I started with the increases, but not everything is bad. We also have some costs going down. From last budget year to this year, we reduced our debt service by 20%, and we're reducing also our transfers out to other funds by another 22.56%. So the combination of those costs going up and some costs going down, it's a net change of 7.84% of expenditures from this year to last year. Now, this budget that you see right here is based on line items, right? Your personnel, your supplies. I wanted to show you the way it looks per department. Same numbers, but just so that you can see where those $75 million get divided into the departments. Now, again, just to summarize, other budget highlights to mention. There were no increase, I already said that, additional personnel. However, it is included the third year of collective bargaining agreement for our police department and our fire department. 4% increase for the police department and 3% for the fire department. We did reclassify a total of 14 IT personnel to its own operating budget, which is teamfar.net. We also restructured some personnel to create a new health department. And we added some health insurance benefits, which it's, I guess the purpose is to, in the long term, to save on the claims for the city of Pharr. Now, overall, this is the summary of the revenues and the expenses. Usually, you see at the bottom the number, 0, but our city manager was push, a lot to balance this budget to show a surplus so that surplus, goes into our reserves. So overall, as long as that number is on the green or 0, we're pretty much balanced and good to go for next fiscal year. And that's all I have for the general fund.
Good job.
Hilda, I think. Okay, now just making sure. I'm gonna jump into the utility fund. For the remaining funds, I'm just gonna go over a very, very basic, just summary. They're not as fun as our general fund. Now, utility fund, I always show that slide too so that you can remember how many accounts, household the city of Pharr has. So we're at 24,700. That includes North Alamo. Our current budget, projected actual, and proposed budget for next fiscal year shows a change of 3.29%. Not much change on the revenues. In a way, it's only a 1%. We're seeing a 1%, 1 to 2% increase in the trend on the water and sewer being billed. The expenses also $17.70 million. We do have a balanced budget. The one thing to mention that it's worth, I guess, mention going back to inflation is that the chemicals costs increased by 64%. It's accounted for already and embedded within our budget, but going back to the fact that everything it's going up. Revenue have only increased 1% and an overall increase in billing costs, postage and supplies. All of those things we've seen an increase as well in cost. So it adds up. But again, we do have a balanced budget and we're good to go for next year also. And where's Ruben? Ruben, so your chemicals, which is a very important operating line item for the budget, it's in there. Again, some things that people take for granted, the water, it costs money. To have your clean water, drinking water, which I always know for sure, if it's City of Pharr water, I can drink it because I know it has the best quality. Now, jumping to Pharr EMS, the other enterprise fund that the City of Pharr has. Again, adopted budget, amended budget, or projected actual. In the last column, if you notice, I have a proposed budget. This is where I'm gonna get a little bit technical. It says accrual basis on the last item on the last column, I'm sorry. And what this means is that the budget, it's kind of like a form of budgeting, right? What this means is that the budget accounts for revenues being billed rather than collected. Now, because EMS, and I guess why do we do that? There's a reason. The nature of the ambulance services, it's very different than the utility and the Pharr bridge and the Gulf, for example. You have your Pharr bridge, you have crossings. The trucks literally pay the money as they cross. It's money that it's coming in. The utility fund, you have your water bill. People pay on a monthly basis. They usually don't take, because the water gets disconnected, they don't take more than 2 months to pay. In the case of EMS, the industry is completely different. It takes a lot of time by issuing the bill and like collection. It can take up to 180 days to actually collect the money. So we want to show these type of budget to show the true picture of what's being billed, if that makes sense. Obviously, like if you see, we're showing like a 911 revenue. We're billing $10.3 million. Transfer revenue, $2.5 million. We're showing what we're billing, but we're also accounting for, and the expense size, what we call bad debt expense. In other words, we're also accounting for an estimate of what we're not gonna collect. Because, we wanna be fair and we wanna show the true picture of what the EMS fund looks like and will look like. So total proposed budget, $13.8 million, with proposed expenses for 13.28, showing a little bit of a surplus of 559,000. Which showing this, means that it's pretty much self-sustained. Correct. And that's what it's showing. It showed this year so far.
You don't foresee more ambulances being bought for the next year?
Danny?
It's not in the budget.
So our depreciation for our ambulances is $250,000 over 4 years. And so we're in year 3. So hopefully the year after, we'll start planning because like anything else, it's taking a year for ambulances to come in also. And so even the prices of ambulances have gone up 20%. So we're going to start that planning process for not this coming fiscal year, but the year after.
Do you have any surplus that you're going to be selling this year?
Yes, sir. We do have, 20 ambulances still that we have not gotten rid of, and we're in the process with our purchase department on auction.
And is that on your budget?
No, sir, that's not.
So there'll be money coming in?
Yes. Yeah, that's not accounted. This is purely operational. I'm sorry.
How much would that be? I'm sorry, like, each ambulance is $100,000 or?
So each ambulance, when we bought the last group, was $217,000.
How much do you estimate you're gonna sell? It's just
About $300,000 for each ambulance. Oh, what are we gonna sell it for, sir?
Yeah.
Oh, so the ones that we have got,
are part of the group that we bought with, when we purchased, the old Atlas. So we got 130 vehicles for $800,000, whatever it was. And so those are about $20,000 a piece what we can get for them.
$10,000.
Yeah, they're older ambulances, they're 2017, 2018 models.
So how long have we had those ambulances?
Sorry, sir?
How long have we had those ambulances?
We've had them since we started because we use them as reserves. So
How long would that be? I'm not forgotten.
Oh, so we've had them for 2 years.
So in 2 years, we had not decided to sell these ambulances?
We sold 24 of them. We kept the best ones that we could so that we could have them for reserves when our units break down. And we have, so some days we stack up to 12 ambulances and we don't have 12 brand new ambulances. We only have 7 brand new ambulances. So we use those to be able to stack those additional trucks.
So on those 20 ambulances that we have, have they passed the 4 years?
No, sir, just the 7 that we bought initially.
So those ones that we had before, how many years have they been in service?
The ones that the new ones that we bought or the ones that we acquired?
The ones that we acquired.
The original.
Original.
So the originals we acquired, they're 2017
Yeah.
models. They're
They're past the 4 years.
Oh, yes, sir.
And they're still working?
Yes, sir, they run, but that's part of our maintenance cost, it's very expensive.
So now, so what I'm hearing is that we have ambulances that we've been since 2017, they run, and in the new ambulances that we have, because we're following our excellence for City of Pharr, we're gonna end up purchasing new ambulances after 4 years.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Danny, the medical equipment rental and contractual services, is that increase from 2023? They basically stayed the same.
Yes, sir.
But your volumes of patients went up?
Right, so that medical equipment rental is the heart monitors, the stretchers, and part of that stretcher.
So it's a set.
It's a set amount for.
So has it gone up at all? Like
It's
everything?
not going up, sir, it's an agreement.
It's a contract. Yeah.
Contractual. No, Danny, and just probably to, I don't know, maybe like on the, it's like any vehicle. Yeah, we can keep a vehicle, a personal vehicle, 5, 6, 7 years. But we don't put the mileage on a lot of these vehicles that are being used out on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I think that's more where it is, where they're getting a lot more usage than the average vehicle gets.
And even the motor keeps running.
Yes, sir. So
And they don't shut, you can't shut off these vehicles because if they're somewhere and they have to get up and go, I mean, that's why they don't shut off the vehicle. Can't risk having an ambulance not crank over when you need it to crank over. It's like the fire department, police department, that's one
What
thing
is the
I
life
always
expectancy?
question, but I know, I mean, it's, when you really look at it, you can't shut these vehicles off because everybody's life, to me, you can't put a value at the end of the day because it could be one of our loved ones. And when we really have to look at the big picture, and I know I question some of it, but like safety, fire departments, police department, EMS, we're messing with people's lives. And to me, you can't put a dollar amount on a person's life. And that's, I very strongly feel, and I wish we could change them out every 3 years, to be honest with you, because you want to have the best equipment out there possible that's going to go to the fire. That is somebody's in need, like the police department, they're rushing to some, you can't, all of a sudden the tire flattens. Yeah, I want the best tires out on the vehicles possible. And obviously there's special tires, it's all this kind of stuff, right, Chief? I mean, you have special radios that the average people can't go buy because it's special police radiators. When you put one of those radiators in, we can buy a radiator for $300. To put a radiator into a police car, gets damaged, it costs $1,200 because it's bigger, it's vented, there's a lot of stuff. And automotive and all this stuff, I don't really understand it because that's what my profession was years back. But I ask these questions so the public can know. I want people to understand that we only seem to really, it doesn't bother us when emergency is there and we need them. But on a daily basis, how often are you going to call an ambulance? How often do you call a police department? How often do you want call a fire department? We don't. People need to understand that. It's like when we're doing the budget, the drainage. 5 years ago, what was the highest priority of anything we had? Drainage. Why? Because we were in a flood. It hasn't rained. People don't care about the flooding anymore. They don't care if you do infrastructure for drainage. I'm not flooded. It only happens when we need it. And that's what we're responsible to do what's on an overall. We're not here to set up an emergency. And, you know, I know I'm taking some time away, but it's just for people at home listening. We're here because we got to do it to be prepared 24/7. And that's what a lot of people don't understand back home. Why do we do this? Because we want to have the best equipment for the city of Pharr. We want to have the best personnel for the city of Pharr. Why? Because these are services we have to provide. So like when it talked about the budget that 50%, over 50% said, okay, we'll take a tax increase. We don't mind it. They're being visual. You're really talking to people that really know what's going on out there, that see those increases of everything. And that's why I get it, guys. I know the Pharr PD, fire department, EMS, our public utilities, our parks and rec, the media, everything we have, you know, everybody looks at Pharr. What's Pharr doing? What's Pharr doing? What's Pharr doing? You understand, at one time, 15 years ago, Pharr was like at the bottom of the barrel. But we've come from there to now, we're a top tier city compared to, people compare us to McAllen. And McAllen's a different animal. That's a monster. But you know what? Pharr's up there. Now I understand where you're from.
We're getting up there.
No, you go. I've been going to conferences for 15 years. In fact, my 15th year. Nobody knew where Pharr was. Now we go to conferences. Everybody knows where Pharr is. Everybody. You know, we're on the map. People understand. And the people back home. Everybody. It's a different perspective of Pharr. Why? Because this is what it entails. For us to get to that point, this is what we have to do. It costs money to do good, unfortunately. It'd be great if it was a gift, but it's not.
I want to make sure I understand when you have
Yes, sir.
a proposed budget, or the actual budget is going to have 7,127,000.
Correct. With the column that says projected actual.
And our expenses are going to be 5,703.
Correct.
And you have on the proposed budget 2024 that we have sent a bill for 10,380,000, right?
Correct.
We haven't collected. We're thinking, we have out there, we probably collect, but we're not gonna collect 5,100,000.
Correct.
So, from the 10 million that we have, we don't need to collect.
Yes. So the 10 million plus the 2,
So that's $5 million that we've given out there to the public, these services, that we're not gonna collect.
that is correct.
We can. It's just, we can't collect it. It's just proposed because you're being very conservative on your numbers.
Yes. I guess what the commissioner is trying to say that it's part of the cost of providing the service.
The community services we give, we have a balanced budget. We're proposing we're gonna have 559,000 in excess revenue. But within our budget, we're giving people, whoever we're serving, not only our Rio Valley, whoever else is serving, $500. Providing their service.
And
It's a great thing.
yeah, and it's only, to be clear, those numbers are Pharr. Those are Pharr resident only.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, so we're providing over $5 million in free care.
That was in the budget because we get a lot of criticism. That we have EMS and we're losing money and all this stuff. And here we're seeing what we're actually doing, that we're actually billing $10 million. We're giving $5 million to the people, but we do have a balanced budget, that we're doing great.
And that's why to me, it's very important to present these numbers to educate the public. You know, because a lot of people out there don't really understand. Me, obviously, I'm in the inside and I see these numbers every day. But hopefully, you know, it's now the public understands the way it actually works. And these are what the true numbers are. And again, the proposed column are projections, but these are projections based on trends.
say, but the thing is, you know, to see when we started, which was about 2 years ago with this, and where we are,
Yeah.
where we are now. I mean, you gotta understand, this is, in any medical business, this is an incredible turnaround, and it just wasn't done. You know, administration was involved, Danny, everybody that was involved, the personnel, the EMS, the strategy, the planning, the meetings, going to hospitals, you know, going to, you know, talking to private individuals, the city, the interlocals, you know, that took a lot of work.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, all the people that contributed to this, you know, so us to provide the wonderful service to the city of Pharr, you know, they have to understand that, you know, this was a goal that we had 2.5 years ago. And now we're even making, you know, a revenue for the city of Pharr on top of providing this the wonderful service. Because we've had countless people that have been saved in the city of Pharr. We've seen them in the city commission meetings. And like Bobby said, you know, you can't put a price on the life, but but this whole endeavor to get here took a lot of work. And, you know, my hats off to a lot of people, you know, especially Danny and his crew, his chief, his assistant chief. And I see these people in the hospital when they pick up patients, they're extremely, professional. They are really, truly desired to be the people that transport sick patients. And we heard that also in our city commission meetings from, you know, people that work in the emergency rooms, you know, the critical care doctors, the trauma surgeons, you know. So, you know, this is a wonderful example of what can be done in the city of Pharr. And even if that 559,000 was a zero, I still would have been a win. You know,
I agree.
you know, for the city of Pharr and our people, and not only for us, but, you know, everybody we transport, San Juan, you know, all the areas and things like that. So my hat's off to administration, to Danny, his team, because if this continues and this is true, you know, this is something we've created for the city of Pharr and the rest of the city of Pharr. And I think this is a wonderful department full of wonderful people.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, I guess if I'm going to move on to teamfart.net, our latest enterprise fund for the city of Pharr. So again, since it's pretty new, it's been like a year and a half in service, along with still construction. I don't have actual numbers from previous year, but I do have actual numbers from this year. And this is the budget that got adopted. The column of the projected actual, those are actual numbers, and what we're proposing for next fiscal year, 2023, 2024. This is based on current connections and the trend of the connections that we're about to complete. And pretty much we're being very conservative on those projections. The $6.9 million is based on an average of 400 or 500 connections on a monthly basis, all the way to September, plus the connections that PSJ committed, which is 6,400 connections.
We have 23,700 houses, right?
24,700.
And how much is collection? Is it $100?
We're doing an average of 45, like we've been very conservative. So we're doing an average of $45, assuming like each household is gonna pay $45, because the range is between 30 and between, Jose, correct me, it's 80, right? Yes, it's $80. So we're being conservative, and we're gonna have some that are gonna pay the 30, and we're gonna have some that are gonna pay 80, so we're doing $45.
It's for upgrades, Danny.
No, I'm just saying simple math, dude. Just $7 million, 24,700 houses. This is in a year. We're gonna make just
Yes.
just a question.
Yes.
I think just like everybody's saying, our net is doing great. Personnel is doing great. Really happy that we are doing this type of internet, high-speed internet for the community. I think that great thing with partnership with the PSJ is gonna help us a lot.
And I think that Jose's doing a great job, but that's it.
Thank you.
You know, one of the highlights that happened, we started this pilot program, remember, with PSJ back in the day, 2015, 16?
That was like 6 years ago, yes.
And one of our volunteers that helps us educate the public and sign up people for the internet happens to be one of those pilot families. And they elaborate when they meet people and tell them, this is what I went through when PSJ was graceful enough to partner with Pharr and give us internet. We never had it, never had a chance to have it. And she experienced it from then to now, and her family is connected with us, right? But it's if you listen to her story, it's amazing how it's transformed her children's ability to excel and for them to be connected with the world. But also, what's hidden, I think one of the jewels that's hidden here is that we are averaging it out with $45, but a lot of the families that we're seeing are not signing up for $45, they're actually signing for much more. But that's not in our budget because we want to make sure that we're conservative at 45. And
compared to last year. We are expected to have, even though with all the numbers and all the expenses, a surplus by the end of this year. And obviously that can be used to either be put back in the reserves or, which I would recommend, for these to have that piggy bank. And that's about it. I don't know if you have any questions.
I have a question on the major critical purpose. Is that for the scale, the movie scale? Because I know they brought to my attention about a movie scale.
Yes, so
basic costs that were going southbound, they're overweight, we can start charging for them.
So we're budgeting 1.5 million for the actual toll system, the rest will be for the weight and motion scales.
But and you're not even figuring any increase in revenue with that money, right?
Right. That's a separate.
And that should be increasing.
It depends, depending on how much we raise the price for that. We started it at 25, 75, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So we have 4 different scenarios.
On excess of it, because we are getting it, because most of we get so much truck traffic for the fuel trucks crossing, and they're going over.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And we haven't monitored that in here, so that's kind of going to be a root generator for the bridge.
Correct.
But
For sure, no, absolutely. That's something I'm going to be presenting later. There's a couple of scenarios, like I said. But one of them would be a complete toll system revamp or purchase of a new toll system along with the weight and motion scales. Also, it's four lanes, but up to 5 lanes that we can actually put those scales on.
Yeah, I think that's something we need to really move on. I think it's really working. We are losing a lot of money that we could be charging out on trailers, the fuel trailers, because really, there's no other bridge that can cross these trailers around. Because they don't have that. So I think we need to take advantage of those things right now, because eventually if it opens up somebody else, we could lose some of it. So we need to, if they're gonna buy it, pay for it now, might as well take advantage. And then once we start crossing, we open the other side, they're gonna come through us, they'll pay that extra money because they're just gonna cross that much faster. They're not gonna go to another bridge and start having the problems. They're not. We're creatures of habit. We're gonna use one way and we're gonna keep doing it and doing it and doing it. It takes years for people to change the way they do things. But I think that's just, something I really want us to really look at.
Okay, and that's all I have for the bridge. Yes, proposed balanced budget. Now, this is pretty much all I have for all the funds, the major funds.
Carla, what was the interest revenue?
Oh, so the interest revenue, so that line item, it's interest generated by the cash that we have in the bank of all the bond proceeds that we issue about 2 years ago. So we have money sitting in the bank because we're waiting for the bridge expansion to kick off the actual construction.
Are you going to be moving that to any short-term CDs, or are you just going to leave it there? Sherry?
Right now, it's generating a good amount of revenue. And just to clarify, the interest revenue that we are allowed to generate if their bond proceeds cannot be higher than the interest that we're paying for those bonds. Yes, but we do account that extra source though, as long as it doesn't pass the interest that we're paying out for those bonds.
The same interest that we're paying right now? Are we generating the same interest?
Not yet. I'm working on it.
I have one more question, Carla, or probably for Luis, on the bridge maintenance itself, because I know we had that little situation, and I know there's a lot of other areas that need to be repaired, because we gotta remember, that's our cash cow, that's something we gotta take care of. Obviously, it's our gold mine for us, so I don't see any maintenance for the actual bridge, the entrances, the exits, and stuff like that, because, like, you know, I've told you, I've had a lot of calls, they've already called me that they're real thankful that we start fixing that first section, but that there's so many other places that need to be repaired.
Yes.
And I think we need to repair them sooner than later, because one of those things cracks or goes down, we lose a lane. We're gonna be losing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a day,
We don't want that.
and we don't want that.
No, I understand. That's also gonna be discussed later, and right now, this is what we consider phase one. Just only 4 or 5 different areas. Those are the priority areas. And then we have a second phase. Depending on how we do by the end of this fiscal year, we can use some of that funding already to repair it. As I mentioned before, in the past, we were repairing these year after year, and we had a budget for it, but then we went to putting together a maintenance plan or a pavement plan. Right now, we're also in the process of, for the long range, preparing a plan of that nature, but we want to fix as many of those issues between here and the end of this fiscal year and starting next fiscal year.
Yeah, I just didn't see
Yes,
any
so
money.
these 3 phases.
Yeah, I just didn't see any funding for it.
We can definitely include it. I mean, we can look at it.
I mean, it's just something to look, I'm just saying to look at it because,
Yes.
you know, we can't afford for any of those things. And we're having, I know at that entrance where there was a shift, as every truck would go by, it would bang, it would bang, it would bang. And the truckers, the trucking companies, a lot of logistics, I know a lot of them, they were calling me, "Bob, when are you gonna fix it? When are you gonna fix it?" And so, I mean, I know I talked to Luis, and Luis finally got on it, and they're thankful, I've got the calls, but, you know, it's like anything, you have to keep, when are you gonna fix that other section, because it needs to be done? And there's 4 or 5 sections, and they all know, because their trucks cross it daily.
And again, just to remind you, this is the reason why we show you this proposed budget. This is not set in stone. I mean, it gets adopted on the last week of September, so we will definitely take that feedback and
We were also able to bring back the maintenance, the emergency repair fund. that
Yes.
we had before. So that's something we talked on early on. It's about $100,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something we haven't seen in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes,
So
we-
And that's great, but I think we need to put that right in, because our bridge has to always be like a Cadillac. I mean, you can't let a tire go bad on it, because the day it does, then we are gonna see those numbers will start going to the negative. We can't afford that. Okay?
I,
just wanted to bring
I
that up.
won't let Luis that happen.
It's
No.
on you, Carla.
Yes. Okay, so just moving on, and finally, to close this presentation, I always like to show this slide also, just to, and this is on our website, to be transparent to the public and to remind, again, all the infrastructure, all the projects, all the improvements, everything that the citizens have, that the city has to offer, again, it has a cost. And of course, we have to issue money to get the funding and repay it, over 20 to 30 years. So this is just a summary of how much the city has in debt. That includes the PEDC, the Pharr Economic Development Corporation. Now, the important thing that I want to highlight, I guess, is the fact that all our debt payments on an annual basis, it's 100% covered and it's budgeted for. So we pretty much have a balanced debt service fund, and all of this is covered. And oh, this last slide, I guess, just so that you can see the bigger picture of how much the city of Pharr, including all the other minor funds and including our capital improvement projects, how much the total budget is, how much is the city running in millions on a yearly basis. So the proposed budget for all the funds and for all the projects that are coming up, it's a total of $276 million compared to $208 million. The biggest change, of course, from one year to the other, if the $50 million that we're increasing for the projects that we talked about at the beginning. And that's about it. That's all I have for your budget workshop.
Great job.
Any-
All right.
Thank you very much, Carla. Great job.
Now, the City Commission will be entering into closed session in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss agenda items listed in the public portion of the agenda and pursuant to Section 551.071 through 551.087, the time being 5:15. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Moving on to item 7C, consideration and action, if any, on the resolution appointing, reappointing 4 members to the Pharr Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. This is going to be to reappoint Dr. McManus, Luis Marin, Danielle Castro, and Rebecca de la Fuente.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Item 7D, consideration and action, if any, on resolution appointing and reappointing 2 regular members to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Danny Wiley, and to appoint new member Ruben Luna.
Okay. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Item 7E, consideration and action, if any, on resolution appointing and reappointing 1 regular member of the board to the Board of Adjustment. Recommendation to reappoint Ruben Luna.
All right. Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Item 8A, consideration and action, if any, authorizing city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement with the city of Weslaco for animal shelter services as discussed in executive session.
Move that discussed in executive session.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? It passes.
Consideration and action, if any, on memorandum. Item 7B, consideration and action, if any, on memorandum of understanding between the city of Pharr and the University of North Texas Dallas for the Texas First Responders Peer Network.
Motion to deny.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Denied.
Item 8C, consideration and action, of any, on memorandum of understanding between the city of Pharr and South Texas ISD for the use of sports complex parking lot for the school year 23-24.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It passes.
Item 8D, consideration and action, of any, on agreement between City of Pharr and Zendesk Inc. for teamphar.net customer relationship management subscription software services.
Okay.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
That's it.
Okay. Do
Motion to adjourn.
you have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. We are adjourned. The time being 9:42. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.